We often think of life as a forward march, a journey from a seed to a sapling, from a hatchling to a soaring bird. It is a story of growth, of strength, of reaching towards the sun. But what happens when that journey reaches its conclusion? When a leaf falls, or a mighty tree finally succumbs to gravity and time, we see it as an ending, a final, silent stillness. But is it truly? Perhaps what we perceive as the end of one story is simply the quiet, unassuming beginning of countless others. Perhaps decay is not a destination, but a doorway through which life passes, changing its form to begin anew, starting a cycle that has spun for eons, unseen and uncelebrated by most. A glass jar, held up to the light, can become a world unto itself. By bringing a small piece of the forest floor into our homes, we can observe this fundamental law of nature. Our journey begins not with a grand expedition, but with a quiet walk among the trees. The air is cool, smelling of damp earth and pine. The collection must be deliberate, thoughtful. We are not just taking, we are borrowing a piece of a living system. A handful of rich, dark soil is the first ingredient. This is not mere dirt. It is a teeming metropolis, a universe of microscopic life. Within this dark, crumbly earth reside bacteria, protozoa, and the dormant spores of countless fungi, all waiting for the right conditions to spring into action. Next, we gather the fallen. The leaves, in their autumnal splendor of ochre, crimson, and gold, are scattered like jewels upon the soil. Each one is a vessel of stored sunlight, a complex structure of cellulose and lignin that once drank the sky. We also add small twigs, brittle and gray with age. They represent the tougher, more resilient parts of the forest. A piece of moss, emerald green and velvety, is gently lifted and placed inside. The moss brings with it its own unique ecosystem. Finally, a gentle mist of water is sprayed over the collection, mimicking the forest dew. The lid is then sealed tight. This is a crucial moment. The world inside is now isolated, a closed system. In the first few days, the world inside the jar seems suspended in time. The air inside the glass becomes heavy with moisture. Droplets of condensation form on the cool inner surface. Then, the wilting begins. It is a subtle process, a slow surrender. The brilliant reds and yellows, once so defiant, start to fade, becoming muted and bruised. A delicate white fuzz begins to appear in patches. At first, it is almost invisible. This is mold, a type of fungus, and its arrival marks a pivotal moment. These are the pioneers, the first responders to the presence of death. The soil itself begins to change too. It appears darker, richer, and more saturated with moisture. The boundaries between the different elements we added start to blur. What was once a collection of separate objects is slowly becoming a single cohesive whole. What we are witnessing is not magic, but a process of extraordinary biological complexity. The transformation within the jar is driven by a vast and varied cast of organisms, most of them too small to be seen with the naked eye. The first to the feast are the microorganisms. They are chemical wizards, capable of producing a vast array of enzymes. They swarm over the surfaces of the decaying leaves and twigs, dissolving the softer tissues and releasing a flow of simple sugars, amino acids, and minerals. Alongside the bacteria are the fungi, the great networkers of the soil. The fuzzy mold we see on the surface is just the fruiting body. Below the surface, a vast network of thread-like structures called mycelium is spreading through the soil and penetrating the tough fibers of the wood and leaves. Finally, there are the slightly larger, though still tiny, invertebrates. If we were to look with a magnifying glass, we might spot them. Mites, springtails, and nematodes, all transported into the jar within the soil, are now thriving. They are the shredders and grazers of this miniature world. As the weeks turn into months, the ecosystem within the jar develops a strange and eerie beauty. The initial rapid bloom of fuzzy white mold gives way to a more complex and varied fungal landscape. New colors and textures appear. The most striking development is the growth of the mycelium. These are the thin, white, root-like threads that begin to weave their way through everything. In the right light, the entire soil mass seems to be held together by this intricate living net. It is a physical manifestation of the interconnectedness of the system. There is a palpable sense of balance in this quiet dance of decay. The process is not a chaotic explosion of rot, but a controlled and self-regulating system. It is a closed loop, where the waste products of one group of organisms become the food for another. The jar becomes a living, breathing entity, with its own internal weather, its own geology, and its own evolving community of inhabitants. Life and death are not opposing forces, but partners in a delicate, ongoing collaboration, a quiet symphony of creation and dissolution that is played out on Earth for billions of years. The process of decay, when observed so intimately, sheds its negative connotations. It ceases to be about loss, and instead becomes a story of profound transformation. The jar is no longer filled with dead leaves and soil, but with potential. The slow, relentless work of the decomposers is an act of alchemy. They are taking the complex, locked-up structures of the past and transmuting them into the simplest, most fundamental currency of life. The vibrant colors of autumn have been sacrificed to create something far more valuable, a dark, fertile foundation for new beginnings. There is a deep, quiet beauty in this transformation. It is the beauty of function, of purpose, of a system working in perfect harmony. The softening textures, the darkening colors, the intricate web of mycelium, they all speak of a world in motion, a world busy with the work of becoming. The energy that the plant captured from the sun is being carefully liberated and redistributed. The minerals it drew from the earth are being returned. This microcosm teaches us to see the forest floor in a new light. That layer of leaf litter is not just debris, it is a slow-burning engine of fertility. The jar shows us, in miniature, that the forest is constantly consuming itself to survive. It is a closed-loop economy of immense elegance. What we are seeing is the essence of resilience. The jar demonstrates that even when isolated, the components of an ecosystem contain within them the blueprint for renewal. After many months, the world inside the jar is almost unrecognizable. The distinct shapes of leaves and twigs have vanished, consumed and integrated into a single unified whole. What remains is a dark, moist, and wonderfully rich soil. It is humus, the very essence of fertility. The process of decay has completed its sacred work. It has taken death and transformed it into the promise of life. This simple experiment challenges our perception of the world. We are conditioned to see growth as good and decay as bad. We celebrate the bloom of a flower, but turn away from its wilting. Yet, the jar teaches us that they are two inseparable parts of the same continuous cycle. Decay, then, is not the opposite of life. It is the engine that drives it forward. In our sterile, modern world, we often see it as a sign of failure or neglect. But in nature, rot is a sign of health, of abundance, of a system that is functioning as it should. The smell of damp earth, the sight of a crumbling log, the soft yielding of the forest floor under our feet, these are the signs of a world that is constantly renewing itself. The journey of our jar may be over, but the cycle it represents is eternal. Just as the contents of this jar broke down to create a foundation for new life, so too do stories and knowledge break down and reform, nourishing the next generation of ideas. The world is in a constant state of flux, of decay and rebirth, and observing these cycles helps us understand our place within them. To continue exploring these intricate, life-giving cycles of our planet, consider subscribing to Tiny Forest Lab. For every end is a beginning, and every story, when it decays, provides the fertile ground from which new understanding can grow. Rot, rebirth, and everything in between.